Hello, this is Projectarian and I'm Jessie. I'm so excited about today's video because this project was actually a collaboration with SCHEEPJES yarn. I'm not entirely sure how to say it. I did try to find out the proper pronunciation, but I couldn't pronounce it like that. Here in South Africa we say SCHEEPJES, so I'm going to be calling it SCHEEPJES. Calliope the Caterpillar is a free crochet pattern. Check the description box below for links to where you can get the pattern from and go download it. If it seems a bit intimidating and beyond your skill level, definitely don't be scared to try it because this video is here to hold your hand through it. You should also definitely tell your friends about this pattern and crochet Calliope together. You can even host your own crochet along for this pattern and you're welcome to make your own yarn kits for it, using SCHEEPJES yarn of course. There is a list of all the yarn and colors inside the pattern document itself. If you'd like to host a crochet along, let me know and I'll help you promote it. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through all the complex parts of the pattern. This is not a particularly difficult pattern by any means, but I wanted to make it accessible to absolutely everyone. So even if you're a brand new beginner, so long as you know how to work a single crochet, you will be able to make Calliope. I'm just going to be demonstrating enough of the pattern to equip you for getting through the rest of it. If you only need help with a particular section, see the video's description box below for the video chapters and skip ahead to the part that you need help with. Remember that everything you need to know for this project is also included in the pattern itself, and if you need help with a specific technique, check the AMIGURUMI tips booklet that came with your pattern for extra tutorials. All of the yarn that I used for Calliope the Caterpillar was generously sponsored by SCHEEPJES. It was my first time trying their yarn and honestly I really enjoyed working with it. I highly recommend this yarn for amigurumi that has a firm structure. It's very easy to work with and it comes in loads of colors. If you'd like to get your hands on some of this yarn for making your own caterpillar, check out the description box below for shopping links. I don't get paid anything for you to shop there, but I do like this yarn and it's definitely the best type for this project. I hope you enjoy this project, and if you decide to make Calliope, please share your pictures with me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to be starting from row 2 of the foot. So here I've already worked row 1, basically just a little blob. You have 5 single crochets and 1 slip stitch. Join yellow with a standing single crochet in the 3rd single crochet of row 1. So get ready to make a standing single crochet, then count to the 3rd single crochet of row 1. 1, 2, 3. Work a standing single crochet. Work 1 more single crochet into the same space. And then work 5 single crochet increases. After I've increased twice, then I reach the slip stitch that I used to join my row. The slip stitch makes 2 loops just like a normal single crochet, so you just work into those 2 loops just like a normal stitch. Now I'm working into the 1st stitch of the row and I'm working the loose end in as I go, and I'm finishing with an increase in the 2nd stitch of my row. Continue working in the round and work 12 single crochets, starting in my standing single crochet and working into the V that I can see there, the 2 loops that I can see when I look at the top of the stitch. One single crochet into each stitch. Work 2 slip stitches in the back loops only. Now I've just worked into the first and second single crochet of row 2 of my foot. Now in the beginning of the pattern it says that chains and slip stitches don't count as stitches unless specifically indicated. So there's a reminder here in the pattern that slip stitches don't count as stitches, meaning when you come to work in this row you completely ignore those 2 stitches as if they don't exist, and you still count the first and second single crochet as the first and second stitch of your row, and you work into the front loops that are left over after working into the back loops. Tie off. Now we're going to join orange in the 8th single crochet with a standing single crochet. So counting from these front loops, which are the first and second stitch of the row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to be working into that stitch. With a standing single crochet. Work 4 single crochet, now I've reached the end of row 3, and there's the start of row 3. It's where I have a front loop left unworked and another one next to it. So the pattern says work 2 single crochets in the front loops only. Then work 5 single crochets. Then work 2 slip stitches in the back loops only. So in my standing single crochet, I have 2 loops that I can work into. I'm going to work into the back loop, 1 slip stitch, and another slip stitch in the back loop of the next stitch. So just like before, I have these 2 front loops left unworked. I don't count the slip stitches, and these are still the first 2 stitches of my row 4. And tie off. There is a lot of fear around working with fur, and it can be really difficult to work with. But in this pattern, there's just a very small amount of fur work, and it is really easy. So I'm going to do a quick demo to show you how easy it really is, so you don't have to be scared of it. I have a spine here that is ready for the fluffy tips to be attached. The pattern says, working in the front loops only of row 1 on a spine, insert your hook at any stitch, and insert it pointing away from the magic ring. There's my magic ring where I started the spine, and there are my loops that I've left unworked when I worked into the back loops there. So insert your hook at any one of them pointing away from the magic ring. Using fur yarn, place a slip knot on your hook and draw the loop up through the single crochet. To do that, just make a knot as if you were about to work a chain. Place that knot on your hook. Then draw it up through that loop. Chain 5. As the pattern says, you can use a bigger hook for this part if it's easier. I am using a 1.5mm hook and it's still entirely workable, but it's definitely easier with a bigger hook. Work 1 slip stitch into the first chain. Now, when you've just worked your fur, all the fibers get pulled to the back of it. So looking at the front, I can still see my 5 chains quite clearly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My very first chain is right there. It's the first chain coming out of that front loop. Insert your hook into the top loop of the chain and work 1 slip stitch. Now that has basically just turned into a ball of fluff. You can't really tell what's going on there, which is a good thing, because if you happen to make a mistake, it would be practically invisible. So don't worry too much about working with fur and making mistakes, because it is really forgiving and mistakes are usually impossible to detect. On the spine, skip the next single crochet, then work 1 slip stitch, chain 5, 1 slip stitch in the first chain. So there's my next single crochet loop. I'm going to skip that one and work into the one afterwards. Make a slip stitch, chain 5, into the first chain. That's the one right there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Insert your hook in there and work 1 slip stitch. Then repeat that. So on the spine, there's your next stitch loop. Skip that one and work into the next one. 1 slip stitch, chain 5, and then a slip stitch into the first chain. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Skip the last single crochet, so you have 1 more remaining loop there. We'll skip that one and working into the first single crochet again where you originally joined your fur, work 1 slip stitch, then tie off. And at this stage, those chains basically just make 3 little pom-poms that can merge into 1 big pom-pom. And you still have your 2 tails. Now we have to get rid of those. From the inside of the spine, hook the loose ends of fur through the single crochet nearest to the tails and pull them inside the spine. So I'm inserting my hook from the open end of the spine. Okay, there's my tail. And I just want to bring my hook out nearby that tail. It doesn't have to be precise by any means. Just bring it out any stitch that is close to that tail. Then hook that tail and pull it into the spine. And do the same for the next tail. Again, insert your hook from the open end, bring it out anywhere near that tail, hook the tail and pull it into the spine. Pull those nice and tightly. To secure these ends, tie each one in turn to the loose end at the magic ring of the spine in a tight knot. Then trim the loose ends and tuck them inside the spine. So this is my loose end that's from the magic ring. This is my tail that comes from finishing the spine. When I finished the spine and tied off, that's the tail I was left with. So the other one is attached to the magic ring where I started the spine. So taking hold of that tail and one of the furry ends, tie them in a tight knot, and when you pull it tight, it will pull inside the spine. And I'm going to tie it one more time. Then I'm going to take the second fur tail and also tie that in a knot with the same tail that comes from the magic ring. And again, I'm making a double knot. Then I'm going to trim those ends. Pull off any excess fluff. And now I'm going to stuff that inside the spine using the back of my crochet hook. All done, nice and tidy and ready to crochet onto your caterpillar's body. I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these segments that has legs on it and color changing stripes, as well as spines and scales, because that will show you all the different techniques involved in making any segment. So if you were making the first segment that just has legs, it uses the same technique for joining the legs on. If you are making the second segment that has no legs but has stripes, it again uses the same technique for changing colors and what to do with your threads. So this demonstration will show you everything in one. You can use it as a visual aid to help you with the different types of segments. We have one leg that has the first half double crochet marked with pink, and the other leg has the last half double crochet marked with purple. I'm starting from the end of row 10 because the end of row 10 is where a new segment begins. You finish row 10 by joining your next new leg, and then row 11 is the first row of your segment where you join your second new leg, and you continue from there. So in row 10 I've already worked my 4 single crochets and decreases in the back loop only 6 times, so that is all across there. And I finished my row over here, and the very last instruction of the leg tells you working on the wrong side of a new leg and starting at the last half double crochet, which is marked with purple, work 1 slip stitch and do not remove the marker. So if I look at my leg, this is the right side, this is the wrong side, the inside is the wrong side. So I want to work from the wrong side, so I want to insert my hook from the inside out, and I have to work at the purple marker and not remove the marker. So I'm going to insert my hook at that purple marker from the inside out and work 1 slip stitch. Then row 11 says turn. Continue on the right side of the segment. Now I'm looking at the right side. Tightly work 30 slip stitches. Usually you would work your slip stitches with the same tension as a single crochet so that it doesn't squeeze your work. But in this case we wanted to squeeze it because we want to create these fat little segments. We want to create these indentations between the segments by working these tight slip stitches. If you're not sure where to start your row, now it does tell you to work on the segment, which means you want to start in the last single crochet that you worked on the segment. And if you're not sure which was your last stitch, you can look at the right side of the stitches, and I can clearly recognize that is a single crochet. Those are slip stitches. So I want to work into that single crochet. Now you want to work these tightly, but you still want to be able to crochet into them when you come back for the next row. But we are going to be crocheting into the back loops only, which is much easier than trying to crochet into both loops of a slip stitch. So don't worry too much that your stitches are going to be too tight and you can't work into them. But if they are too tight and you really can't work into them, then work them a little bit looser. Then the pattern says working on the right side of a new leg, starting at the first half double crochet that is marked with pink, work one slip stitch and remove the marker. So I'm going to remove the marker. And it said working from the right side, so I'm going to work from the outside in, where that pink marker was. Work one slip stitch. Now I'm going to move on to the next row of the segment, which in the pattern it's row 2 of segment 3 because the segment just gets repeated over and over. It runs from row 2 to 11. Row 1 is different because row 1 starts from a legless body segment. Row 2 says turn and work in the back loops only of the slip stitches for this row. On the segment, work 4 single crochets and then an increase and do that 6 times. So I'm going to turn, and now the back loop is the one that's furthest away from me. If I'm looking at my slip stitches from this side, the back loop is furthest away and the front loop is the one that's closest to me. And if I turn it over, the back loop is now the one furthest away and the front loop is closest to me. So looking at my slip stitches, I want to work on the segment, not on the leg. So I'm going to skip that slip stitch that I worked into the leg, and I'm going to work into the first one on the segment, which is there. I'm going to work into the first one on the segment and into the back loop only. Work 4 single crochets in the back loops, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 increase, and repeat that 6 times. Now, as you can see, I'm not struggling to work into my back loops. This yarn doesn't split, so it is really nice to work with on the small scale. It does make it a bit easier, but you can see you shouldn't be struggling to get into those back loops. And if you really can't get in there, then your slip stitches need to be worked just a little bit looser. So I've reached the end of my row, and my increase gets worked into my last slip stitch that is on the segment, my final increase. Now the last instruction says on the wrong side of the leg, work 1 slip stitch into the last half double crochet that is marked with purple again, and now remove the marker. So remove the marker, and where you've already worked a slip stitch into that half double crochet, work into that same half double crochet again from the wrong side. So you don't want to work on the side, you want to work on the inside of the leg. Insert your hook in that same stitch where the purple marker was and work 1 slip stitch. Then work 1 slip stitch in the next half double crochet. That is the very next stitch that you can see on the leg. Another slip stitch. All of your slip stitches throughout the pattern should be worked with the same tension as a single crochet, unless it specifically tells you to work them tightly, which it will do on these parts of the segments where they need to be pulled tightly. For row 3, turn. On the segment, work 5 single crochets and then an increase, and do that 6 times. So it says I must work on the segment, not the leg. Now remember, right at the beginning of the pattern it tells you that chains and slip stitches do not count as stitches unless specifically indicated. So I've just worked 2 slip stitches into my foot, and those weren't included in my stitch count, which means that all the other stitches count as stitches, but the slip stitches don't. So I'm going to work into the last single crochet that I had on the segment. If you're not sure where that is, you can check from the other side, and I can see that's a single crochet. Also, I know that I finished my last row with 2 slip stitches, so I can just skip the first 2, work into the third one, and I know that's my first single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, and repeat that 6 times. On the right side of the leg, work 2 slip stitches. So I want to work into the next available half double crochet. I've already worked into that one, so I'm going to work into that one. Slip stitch, and then another slip stitch in the next one. Now we need to mark some of the stitches on the segment. I'm going to remove my hook to make it easier. Mark the 17th one with pink. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Mark the 18th one with orange. It's the very next one. Mark the 25th one with blue. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And the 26th one with yellow. At this stage, the pattern reminds you about the rules for changing colors and carrying or dropping yarn and working in your ends as you go. So this is all learned when you do the legless body segment. You learn how to change colors and what to do with your yarn each time you change a color. So that applies for every segment after that. So it's not repeated in the instructions for every segment because you learned it over here, so you just apply what you learned for each one. And there's a note that says in this section, before working the last single crochet of each row that has a color change, drop the threads towards the inside of the body. So I'll show you that when we get there. In row 4 now, we're going to attach a scale. That's what your scale looks like. And notice how the colors of the stitch markers match. So as we attach the scale, we're going to match up the colors together so that the scale ends up in the right position, and we're going to crochet those stitches together as we go. This is how I ended at the end of row 3. Row 4 says turn and work 1 single crochet. So we automatically skip the first 2 slip stitches because they don't count. So starting in the last single crochet of row 3, that's over there, work 1 single crochet, and it says to change to your light body color. And to change color, you start a single crochet and then you use your new color to yarn over and draw through 2 loops. The color changing technique is in your Amigurumi tips booklet that comes with your pattern, so everything you need to know is in those documents. So using your light body color, work 15 single crochets. Now I've worked over my loose end of my light body color for a few stitches and it's pretty secure now. So I'm just going to tug that to pull up the slack, and then I'm going to lay that on the inside of the body, and I'm going to keep carrying my main body color along as I go. I finished working my 15 single crochets, and now it says to attach a scale using up 10 single crochets and remove the markers as you reach them. Match up the yellow marker on the segment with the yellow marker on a scale. So I'm going to place the scale on the right side of the segment because that's where I want it to be attached, and I'm going to place it so that the yellow markers are close together. So match up the yellow markers and work 1 single crochet into both stitches at the same time. So insert your hook into the first stitch that is marked with yellow. Remember to carry your main body color along as you do this, and then insert your hook into the stitch on your scale that is marked with yellow. Now both pieces are on your hook and you can remove those markers. And work 1 single crochet. Match up the blue markers and work 1 single crochet. So again, insert your hook at the next stitch marked with blue on the segment and into the stitch marked with blue on the scale. Remember to carry your body color along as you go. Now both pieces are on your hook. Remove the markers. And work another single crochet. The scale is starting to be joined to the segment. You've got 2 stitches joining it so far. Continue working into both pieces for 8 more single crochets, matching up the markers when you reach them. So I'm going to carry on just like I did before into the next stitch on the segment, into the next stitch on the scale, 1 single crochet. in the next stitch on the segment, and the next stitch on the scale, another single crochet, and keep going like that until you reach the markers. I've reached my markers, so now I'm going to work into the stitch marked with orange on the segment and the stitch marked with orange on the scale, and remove those markers. Work one single crochet, and then the pattern says to tuck the scale's loose end to the inside of the body before you work the last single crochet at the pink markers. So I'm just about to work my last single crochet at my pink markers, so I'll take my loose ends from my scale and just tuck them inside the body. Then insert your hook at the pink marked stitch on the segment and the pink marked stitch on the scale. Remember to always carry your main body color along. Remove the pink markers. And work one single crochet. Now you have worked 10 single crochets and you have attached the scale, using up all of those stitches that were marked and all of the stitches between the markers. In total, you've worked 10 single crochets onto the scale and you've used up 10 single crochets on the segment. Working on the segment only. Now you finished with working on the scale, so just working on the segment, work 15 single crochets. And then change to your main body color. I've just worked 14 of my 15 stitches. Now I'm about to change to my main body color after the 15th stitch, but I want to make sure that I pull up all the slack in the thread that I've worked in, because as you can see, if you look at the wrong side of your stitches, where you worked over the thread, it's all bunched up and messy. So holding the end where the thread came from, see my last stitch that I worked in that color was over there, so I'm going to hold it over there and then I'm going to pull it tight and pull all of that bunching out, and then just smooth that down to make sure that I didn't shrink it by pulling that thread, because it's also possible to do that and pull it too small and pull your body closed. So make sure that there's no tension anywhere, but that there's also no slack anywhere. Then I'm going to work my 15th single crochet and finish it by changing to my main body color. So again, to change color, you start a single crochet. And as I told you in that extra note at the beginning of this section, it said, before working the last single crochet of each row that has a color change, drop the threads towards the inside of the body. So I'm about to work my last single crochet after this. So I'm going to drop the thread toward the inside of the body. Then I'm going to complete my color change by finishing that single crochet with my new color. And then work my last single crochet into the segment, and all my loose ends are towards the inside of the body. Then on the wrong side of the leg, work 2 slip stitches. So this is the right side, so I'm going to work on the inside of my leg in the very next available stitch. So my leg should be like this, right? The very next available stitch is that one right there. Work a slip stitch, and in the next half double crochet work another slip stitch. And row 4 is complete. Now we're going to add some markers. So we need 2 pink ones and 2 green ones. Mark the 13th stitch with green. Now my first stitch was worked with main body color, so that's where I start counting from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Green. And the 16th stitch with pink. 14, 15, 16. The 27th stitch with green. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. And the 30th stitch with pink. 28, 29, 30. So notice that I've marked the stitches on either side of the scale, leaving the 10 stitches across the scale open. I'm going to attach the spines in the next row. Now when you make the spines, it will tell you to mark the 4th stitch with pink and the 7th one with green. So I'm going to do that. There's my last stitch of the row over there. So counting from my first single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and mark that with pink. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my 7th stitch with green. So that is 5, 6, 7. Now you can leave these loose ends attached. It is quite difficult to work around them, but if you don't find it difficult with the particular yarn that you're using, maybe you're making a big caterpillar and this isn't going to get in the way, you can leave them there, and when you attach the scale you can just leave the loose ends hanging inside. But for me, because my caterpillar is quite small, my fur does get in the way, so I'm going to trim these off, and that will also make it easier for you to see what I'm doing. Now that is ready to be attached. This is how you finished up at the end of row 4. For row 5, turn, work 1 single crochet, and remember that chains and slip stitches don't count as stitches unless specified, so we ignore these slip stitches as if they don't exist, and we start working in the single crochets. And I know my last single crochet was main body color, so I'm going to work into that stitch there. 1 single crochet and change to white. Using white, work 11 single crochets and remember to work over all of these threads as you go. After I've worked over the white loose end for a few stitches, I'll do like I did before and pull up the slack and then drop the loose end towards the inside of the body. I'll be doing the same thing for all these types of loose ends throughout the video using the same method. My 11 single crochets. Now it says to attach a spine using up 4 single crochets and remove the markers as you reach them. Match up the green marker on a spine with the green marker on a segment so that the edge of the spine is laying on top of the edge of the segment. There's the edge of the segment, there's the edge of the spine, and I want to match up the green markers, so I'm going to lay the segment on the spine so that the green markers are close together and the edges are touching. Working into both stitches at the same time, work 1 single crochet, and I need to work on the wrong side of the spine and the right side of the segment. The outside of the spine is the right side and the inside of the spine is the wrong side. So if I want to work on the wrong side of the spine, I want to insert my hook from the inside going out. And on the right side of the segment, insert your hook at the green marker. Now I have both pieces on my hook and I can remove the markers. Then work 1 single crochet and make sure you keep carrying your threads along as you go. Now my spine is attached by 1 single crochet. Continue working into both pieces for 3 more single crochets, so altogether you will have 4, and the 4th one will be worked where the pink markers are. So going into the wrong side of your spine again in the next stitch, and in the next stitch on your segment, another single crochet, and again in the next stitch on your spine, and the next stitch on your segment, work your 3rd single crochet, and now the 4th single crochet goes in at the pink marker on the spine and in at the pink marker on the segment, and then you can remove those markers. And work your 4th single crochet. Now your segment is attached by 4 single crochets and some of it still remains unattached. Now working on the segment, work 10 single crochets. And again, remember to carry those threads along as you go. I've finished working my 10 single crochets. Now attach another spine using up 4 single crochets by the same method as before. So I'm going to take my spine, lay it down on the segment so that the green markers are close to each other, and then just like before, I'm going to work from the inside of the spine in that green marker towards the outside and into the next stitch that's marked with green on the segment. Remove those markers and work 1 single crochet, and then carry on working into the next stitch on the spine, the next stitch on the segment, work another single crochet and 1 more, then work your last single crochet where the pink markers are. Go in at the pink marked stitch on the spine and the one on the segment, remove the markers and work your 4th single crochet. And now you have another spine that is attached by 4 single crochets and you still have these stitches remaining that are not attached. On the segment, work 11 single crochets and then change to your main body color. I've worked 10 of my 11 single crochets and now I'm going to pull up the slack in these threads before I change color. So I've removed my hook to make it easier, and I'm going to pull on 1 thread at a time. I'm going to hold it where I last worked with that color, which was on the side. I'm going to hold it there, pull up all the slack, and then the second one, pull up all the slack. And then smooth out the body again, just in case you've pulled those threads too tight and that it's squeezed the body closed, so that there's no extra tension anywhere, nothing is pulled too tight, but there's also no slack. Now I'm going to work my 11th single crochet and change to my main body color. And then, like that note said in the beginning, before you work your last single crochet on a row that has a color change, drop your threads towards the inside of the body, then work your last single crochet. On the right side of the leg, work 2 slip stitches. So I'm just going to go into my very next half double crochet that I can see there, 1 slip stitch and another slip stitch in the next one. Now turn, work 1 single crochet and change to dark gray. So again, I'm ignoring the slip stitches like they don't exist. I'm starting in my single crochet, work 1 single crochet and change to dark gray. Now, using your dark gray, work 11 single crochets and remember to carry all these threads along as you go. The threads are a bit loose and messy on this end, but I know that when I get to changing color again, I'm going to pull all of the slack up before I change color, so I'm not worried about that now. I've worked my 11 single crochet in dark gray. Now the pattern says to drop your threads, so I'm going to drop them towards the inside of the body. On the wrong side of the spine, work 1 single crochet. So if I look at the spine, I've worked 4 single crochets into the spine. And the very next stitch that I have available to work into is right over there, that stitch. And I want to work on the wrong side. So I'm going to go from the inside of my spine outwards and work 1 single crochet. Then chain 5. Skip 4 stitches on the spine. So I would have carried on working in this direction. I worked 1 in there and I would have carried on working there. So I'm going to skip stitches in that direction. So I'm going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4. And in my remaining single crochet, I'm going to work 1 single crochet from the wrong side. So from the inside of my spine going out, work 1 single crochet. Now you have 2 dark gray single crochets worked onto your spine, and you have 4 stitches remaining on your spine that you can still work into. Pick up the discarded yarns and carry them along again, crocheting over them as you go. On the segment, skip 4 single crochets. So the last place I worked on the segment was over here, so I'm going to start counting from there. I'm going to skip 4 stitches and then I'm going to work 10 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start in the next stitch and working my threads in. I'm going to work 10 single crochets. Your threads might start becoming a little bit tangled up at this point, but don't worry. I don't worry too much about trying to avoid tangles at this stage because you're going to cut your yarn in a few minutes. So I let it tangle up a little bit and then I'm going to cut it by the end of the row anyway. I'm finished working my 10 single crochets on the segment. Then it says to repeat that section. So once again, drop the carried threads to the inside of the body. Then on the spine, working from the wrong side again, work 1 single crochet. So in that very next available stitch, going from the inside of the spine outwards, work 1 single crochet. then chain 5, then skip 4 stitches on the spine, 1, 2, 3, 4, and working in the last available stitch from the inside of the spine, from the wrong side of the spine outwards, work 1 single crochet. Now the second spine looks the same as the first one. Then pick up all your threads to carry them along again. On the segment, skip 4 single crochets. There's the last place that I worked on the segment, so I'm going to start counting from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and start in the next stitch and work 11 single crochets. I have worked 10 of my 11 single crochets, and now I'm going to pull up the slack on all those threads before I change color. So again, I'm going to hold it and pull them each one at a time. Until all the slack is gone, and then just smooth out that row. Then I'll work my 11th single crochet and change to my main body color. And just like that note said at the beginning of the section, before you work your last single crochet of the row, drop all your threads to the inside of the body. And I'm going to finish my stitch and work my last single crochet with my main body color. Now it says I can cut my dark gray, so I'm just going to grab that and cut it, and then on the wrong side of the leg work 2 slip stitches. So again, you want to work into the half double crochets, carry on working in that direction. So in your very next available stitch, from the wrong side of the leg work a slip stitch and another slip stitch in the next half double crochet. Turn, work 1 single crochet, again ignoring the slip stitches as usual, and change to white. Then using white, work 10 single crochets, and I am working my dark grey loose end in for a few stitches here. After I've worked a few stitches, I'll drop it again. And now I'm going to finish working my 10 single crochets. Then it says work 1 decrease. Now what I have left here, before I get to my 5 chains, there's my 5 chains, and I have 1 single crochet over there that is worked into my spine, and I have 1 single crochet left on my segment. So that's where I'm going to work my decrease. And because your decrease should be invisible, you should work into the front loops only. So pick up those front loops onto your hook. Remember to carry your threads along now. And work your decrease. Now on the spine, work 4 single crochets. So we're going to ignore that dark grey chain. Just leave it as if it doesn't exist. And starting in the very next stitch on the spine, start working there and make 4 single crochets. 1, 2, and now I've reached the loose end of the spine, so I'm going to work that in as I go. I'm going to carry it along. 3, 4. Now I've worked over the loose end of the spine for 2 stitches, so I'll drop that loose end inside the body. And remember, I only had 4 stitches left to work into on my spine, and I've just worked 4 stitches onto it. So now all the stitches on my spine are used up and the spine attachment is complete. On the segment, work a decrease, starting in the first single crochet that comes after the 5 chains. That is the single crochet that has been worked into the spine, into the front loops of that stitch and the front loops of the next stitch, and then working in your threads as you go, work your invisible decrease. Then on the spine, work 8 single crochets. I've finished working my 8 single crochets on the segment. Now work another decrease. So again, we're working into the last stitch that's worked into the segment and working into the next stitch that's worked onto the spine, into the front loops of those stitches to make an invisible decrease, and work your threads in as you go. Then working on the spine, work 4 single crochets. So you're going to start in the very next available stitch on the spine. Two, 3, and 4. Once again, I worked my spine's loose end in for 2 stitches. So now I'm going to drop that inside the body. Then working on the segment, work another decrease again. So that will be into the stitch that is worked onto the spine and into the stitch that is worked onto the segment. Then work 10 single crochets and change to main body color. I'm going to work my 10th single crochet and change to my main body color. And then before I work my last single crochet, I'm going to drop my threads to the inside of the body, work 1 single crochet, and then on the right side of the leg, work 2 slip stitches. Now I have to mark the stitches again. Mark the 17th one with pink. And remember to start counting from your main body color. Mark the 18th stitch with orange. Mark the 25th stitch with blue. And mark the 26th stitch with yellow. So what we have here is markings preparing us to attach our next scale. The markers are attached on the 10 stitches that are between the spines. Oh, and I forgot to mention we can cut the white thread now. and then you can just leave the tail hanging inside the body, or you can work it in as you go. This is the position we finished row 7. For row 8, turn. Work 1 single crochet and change to the light body color. Then work 15 single crochets. And I'm going to work my loose end of my white in as I go. I've finished working my 15 single crochets, and now it says attach a scale on the right side of the caterpillar's body using up 10 single crochets. So just like we did the previous scale, we're going to do this one exactly the same. So you place the scale on the caterpillar's right side so that the yellow markers are close together, and you start off by working into the yellow marked stitch on the segment and the stitch marked with yellow on the scale. Remove the markers. Both pieces are on your hook. Work 1 single crochet to join them. And then do the same where the blue markers are. Another single crochet, and then carry on crocheting through the segment and the scale like you did before to the next stitch on the segment and the next stitch on the scale, single crochet, and carry on like that all the way up to the next markers. And then again work into the stitches marked with orange, and you can remove the markers as you do that. And before you work into the stitches marked with pink, remember to tuck your scales loose ends to the inside of the body. So I'm putting my purple threads inside there, keeping my main body color outside, and working into the stitches that are marked with pink for my final single crochet. I'll pull the scales loose ends nice and tight. Now the scale attachment is complete. I've worked 10 single crochets into the scale, starting from the first marked stitch all the way to the last marked stitch, and I've used up 10 single crochets on the segment. Now working on the segment only, work 15 single crochets and then change to main body color. I'm going to work my 15th single crochet and change to my main body color. And then I can cut my light body color, which I've already done. And then work your last single crochet with your main body color, and then on the wrong side of the leg work 2 slip stitches. Now all of your other colors have been cut. The only color you have left to work with is your main body color. So we're going to work a few rows with that before we start doing color changes again. Turn. Work 5 single crochets and a decrease, and do that 6 times. As I work, I'm going to carry this end along just to work it in for a few stitches as I go. Remember, your decreases get worked into the front loops only. Then I'm going to carry on working my 5 single crochets and a decrease all the way across 6 times. I'm finished working my 5 single crochets and decreases all the way across, and now on the right side of the leg work 2 slip stitches. All the half double crochets on this leg have now been used up, so your very next stitch here should be a single crochet. You've worked into all the half double crochets, and the next one that you have available is a single crochet. So now you know that leg attachment is complete. Turn, work 4 single crochets and then a decrease in the back loops only, and do that 6 times. Remember to still ignore the slip stitches. Always ignore slip stitches and chains unless it specifically tells you to count them or work into them. I'm finished working my 4 single crochets and decreases all the way across, and now on the wrong side of the leg work 1 slip stitch. Now all the half double crochets on this leg have been used up, so the next stitch that you have on this leg is a single crochet. You've worked into all the half double crochets, and now you know this leg attachment is complete. The very last step of this row tells you working on a new leg, work into the last half double crochet, that is the stitch marked with purple, on the wrong side. So if you remember when we started this segment, that's the stitch that we started with. We started off by working into this purple marked stitch on a leg. So that means we've gone full circle, we've gotten all the way back to where we started this segment. So that means I've been through one full segment with you, and I've showed you all the steps and all the different techniques that there are for changing colors, for carrying your yarn along, for connecting feet to the segment, for connecting scales to the segment, and spines. I'm going to show you how to join the legs together. I'll show you each of the 3 different types of joins. I'm going to be starting with the easiest type of join, which is just joining 2 legs together. And remember, when you worked the body segments, at the end of each row you slip stitched into the half double crochets on the legs here until all of the half double crochets were used up. So now the next available stitches that you have for working into on the leg are single crochets, and you have 4 single crochets before your slip stitches begin over there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets, and on the other side of the leg as well. So if we look at this one, this is like looking at the other side of that leg, there's also 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, before the slip stitches begin. So every leg has 4 single crochets on both sides of it that are workable, and the slip stitches in between those. So we're going to be working the legs together like this, working into the 4 single crochets and crocheting them together to join those 4 single crochets on both legs. So begin with a slip knot on your hook. To do that, you just make a knot as if you were going to make a chain, and put that on your hook just as if you're about to start crocheting a chain. Then on the legs, from the wrong side on your first leg, insert your hook at the first single crochet. Then on the second leg, on the right side, insert your hook at the first single crochet. Now both legs are on your hook. Work 1 slip stitch, yarn over, and draw that loop through both the legs and through the loop that's on your hook as well. Then you can pull the loose end to tighten that knot. Then go into the next single crochet on your first leg, and the next single crochet on your second leg, and work a slip stitch. And go into the next single crochet on your first leg, and the next one in your second leg, and work another slip stitch. And do that one more time in the next single crochet on each leg. Work your last slip stitch, then chain 1 and tie off. Now that join is complete, the legs are joined using up 4 single crochets on each leg, and if you look at the right side, that's what the join looks like. There is a little bit of a gap. If you stretch it open, there's a little hole. Now on the scale, that tiny hole doesn't matter, it's not a problem, but maybe you're making a bigger one. Either way, if that hole bothers you, you can use one of the loose ends and just sew it closed, or you can begin your slip stitches 1 stitch earlier. So you would start in the half double crochets, slip stitch those together, and then slip stitch your single crochets together, so you would end up with 5 slip stitches all together. The next type of join is also very easy, it's just a little bit different. That would be if you're joining a leg to a segment that has no legs. So I'm doing the one that is on the front end of the body. So this is the one that just has normal single crochets that you're going to work into. It's not the one where you work into the front loops. We're going to work into these 4 single crochets on the segment, and 4 single crochets on the leg. So again, just begin with a slip knot on your hook as if you were about to make a chain. On the leg, working from the wrong side, the inside of the leg, insert your hook in the first single crochet, and then on the segment, working from the right side, insert your hook in that first single crochet. Then yarn over, draw that through both pieces and through the loop on your hook. Then you can pull the loose end tight and chain 1. Then work into the next stitch on the leg and the next stitch on the segment. Work another slip stitch. And again into the next stitch on the leg and the next stitch on the segment. Work a slip stitch and one more time in the next stitch on the leg and the last stitch on the segment. Work your last slip stitch, then chain 1 and tie off. Now those pieces are joined. You've used up all 4 single crochets that you had on your segment and the 4 single crochets that you had on your leg. And if you look at the right side, that's what your join looks like. The last join is a little bit more tricky because you're working into those front loops only. So I'm going to be showing you on the legless segment that's at the back of my body and the leg that gets joined to that. Now when you worked this segment, when you got to the end here, you turned around and you slip stitched into the back loops, leaving these front loops free for working into later. And the pattern also said that if you struggle to identify your stitches, that you should mark these. So maybe yours have markers on. So we're going to be working into those 4 marked stitches. The principle stays the same. We're still going to be joining them like that, exactly the same as you did all the other pieces. So we're still going to have them right sides together, and we're still going to be working into 2 layers, and we're still going to be working into the wrong side of this stitch and the right side of that one. Before I put my knot on my hook, I just want to show you how to get your hook in there. There's the first of my 4 front loops that I need to work into. So I'll begin by inserting my hook from this side. And then going into the leg. So now I'm going to put my yarn on my hook and I'll show you again. You begin with a slip knot on your hook as if you were going to make a chain. Find that first front loop out of the 4 front loops, the one that is closest to the body, and make sure you're inserting your hook from this direction. Then grab the leg, swing around and go into that single crochet, so that you're going into the single crochet that is closest to the body. Then yarn over, draw through both pieces and through the loop that's on your hook. Then chain 1. And you can pull the loose end to tighten that knot. Then work into the second front loop that you have available there and into the second single crochet on your leg. then work a slip stitch. Then go into the third front loop that you have and the third single crochet on your leg and work a slip stitch. And then go into the last front loop that you have and the fourth single crochet on the leg and work your last slip stitch. Then chain 1 and tie off. So now this one is joined exactly like the others were, working into the wrong side of this and the right side of the leg and ignoring the slip stitches. And this is how your join should look from the outside. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be making your own Calliope the Caterpillar, and don't forget to share your pictures with me when you do. Subscribe for more tutorials, and I will see you next time.